Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sanjeev, your host today. So I'm co-founder and director at Enabling World, a boutique HR consulting firm which is hosting this session today. So I'm very privileged. First of all, welcome to everyone from wherever you're joining. And today we have a very, very hot topic to discuss, which everyone is talking everywhere, and we all are learning together. I'm sure that our learning will go up a little bit. We'll clarify a few doubts, some myths will bust, and we'll get some practical way forward of how things move, how we can leverage Gen AI for HR. So first thing first, let me welcome Anshu and Gaurav. Uh, Brief introduction, if I can give about Anshu. Anshu, I had uh, worked with, I had a fortune of working with her for some time, brief time in IBM. And it was wonderful to work with her. Anshu, good to see you again. So Anshu is very excited, and recently she took up a very exciting role, and I envy you, Anshu. I can say that she has taken up HR transformation role for IBM India, right? I mean, you're doing it at India level, I don't know, or at global level. Anshu, you'll have to.
It will be at global level, sir, because
Global.
all the corporate functions are at the global level. So supporting it globally.
Perfect, perfect. So that's an amazing role, and it's such a critical role. And getting at this young age is absolutely phenomenal. So wish you all the best. And we are going to learn a lot from you, Anshu. And thank you very much. And she's joining from today from NCR region. I don't know whether you are in Delhi, Gurgaon, or Noida, wherever you are.
Gurgaon. Gurgaon.
Gurgaon. Gurgaon. All right. Thank you. And then I have my friend Gaurav Vasu. He's an amazing, very interesting person. And I think if someone is interested in knowing about career, right, how to manage, you should talk to him. He has done phenomenal multiple things in business, in HR. So I think the reason I hooked him into this session is that first of all, he's a founder and founder for an amazing firm called Unearth Insight, where they're unearthing a lot of insights about market. It's about talent, and a significant part of his work is with talent. And as a part of this, he has done phenomenal work in terms of doing a primary research on Gen AI usage in HR across industries, right? And when I heard him, I said, I must get you on this talk, and we must listen to you what all is happening around, because we all have an idea about Gen AI, but practically on the ground, what are the use cases, where it is used, how people are using is something he has first-hand information on, that through the primary research that he and his team has done. And he also does a lot of other talent search, market search. So I think there's a lot he knows about industry. So Gaurav, thank you very much for joining in. We look forward to hear from you. And Anshu, I missed telling that Anshu has recently also written, and you must talk about it during this session, a white paper or some thought paper on generative AI or technology in HR. So you should mention about it during the discussion. What is it all about? What can we learn, right? If it is shareable, share it across, right? Unless it's an IPR issue. Okay, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Sure.
All right. So
Thanks, Sandeep.
just a brief introduction about Enabling World. So Enabling World, we are on the 12th year, and it's a boutique consulting firm. We do some niche work. It is run by me and my colleague, my college friend Sushil Tayal, and my business partner also. And he's the one who started. I joined him 6 years back after my stint with IBM. And our focus, we are quite spread out for our size, but I think we are into solutioning. So we are interested in HR consulting and advisory, leadership and talent development. We do a lot of work in DEI, and there's a debate going on whether equity should be a part of the DEI or not. So there's a hot debate going on nowadays. Maybe in the next session we'll pick it up. We do a lot of work there, and then we do employee well-being came accidental to us, but today it has become one of the strongest pillars. We do a lot of work on employee well-being. We work with Fortune 500 companies on doing various employee well-being sessions for them. So I think that's what we do. I'm based in Delhi, and my partner is in Bangalore, and our team is spread out into different parts of the country, west and north and south. So that's what about Enabling World, and thank you all the customers, clients, partners, colleagues, friends, for your wishes that we have sustained 12 years, and we look forward to continue this journey incremental growing and learning from each other. All right. So with that, let's get deep into the session straightway. So you can stop sharing, Vijaya. So I think the Gaurav and Anshu, this session will be in a conversation mode. It's a conversation, free flowing conversation. I have few questions that we got from audience, and thank you audience for sharing those very genuine questions, very genuine query about Gen AI and HR. So we'll try to cover most of it during the session. While 90 minutes is not enough for such a topic, but what we want to do is not share something which is commonly known. We want to share some practical insights from Anshu and Gaurav. I'll share whatever I know, and then try to bust some myths about Gen AI or give you some framework or what's working, not working, what to do, what not to do. We'll try to keep it very on the ground and practical as much as possible. And so let's get to the session. So I think let me start, Anshu, with you. Uh, Basic thing, basic, because I don't know, we all would have a different level of understanding of what is Gen AI, how is it related to artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, how are they connected? Can you, in very simple terms, don't use jargons, but for a layman like me, keep very simple. Uh, what is generative AI? And how is it related to AI in general as we understand, right? Can you just clarify to us where does it fit in?
Sure. Thanks for that question. And I want to give a very warm welcome to all the participants here. Before I start explaining Gen AI in simple terms, I definitely want to take everybody on the same page of understanding with ba- building the foundation of what is artificial intelligence. So, artificial intelligence was actually a term coined by John McCarthy in 1955. And in simple terms, it was the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. So, this was not a new concept. This concept was there for a very long time, but John McCarthy actually put this to use. And then that is the word that now progressed. And if we look at how the world can experience artificial intelligence by looking at its creative side, that's where we're commonly referring this to as Gen AI or generative AI. So let me really talk about what is Gen AI. Gen AI refers to the next generation of artificial intelligence, and it pretty much really means that it can really understand, learn, apply knowledge across a wide range of tasks and domains, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much like humans, right? It is it can actually use the different data sources that are available and generate new knowledge and ideas. The only difference that I will quote between artificial intelligence to Gen AI is it has the ability to understand patterns and
Mm-hmm.
leverage those patterns to build new knowledge. And that's where we actually see the magic happening, because it also takes me back to the time that I first time heard about generative AI. It really evoked a sense of magic, because it could produce music, it could kind of write poetry, it could give you original joke. So the creative aspect is what differentiates generative AI from AI. But I'm going to take a pause here to see, Sanjeev sir, if there are any clarifying questions or if Gaurav wants to add anything here.
Gaurav, because this is foundation, and I think people say Gen AI, Gen AI is all chat GPTs, I mean, people understand that that's very, very popular. That really brought it to everyone's life, right? People started understanding. But you want to add anything to make it very simple of what Gen AI is before we get into the deeper
Sure.
into the session?
Sure, absolutely. I think to make it very brief, I think Anshul, thank you for that background of, how the AI itself emerged over the years, right? And thanks to the audience as well for participating. I think to make it even much more granular or simpler, if you see, we had a transformation across different enterprises. The first revolution that happened, in the first revolution in enterprises, I actually talk about the revolution of what we call as systems of records,
Mm.
where organizations transitioned from files to actually converting that and digitizing that. And IBM played a huge role in that. Microsoft played a huge role. Oracle played a huge role where they came up with databases, right? That was the foundation layer where we moved from uh, basic information that we had. People used to work on files, and that moved to systems of records. As we got into the closer to the 20th century, IBM and a few of the others actually pioneered a lot more of what you call as AI in the enterprise function space, where like Anshul said, right, whatever me, you, and everybody else is doing as normal tasks in our day-to-day life, how intelligence is getting embedded and assisting human to actually perform it intelligently. So AI in our simple term, when we were taught, let's say by a couple of our professors, is somebody who could take orders. You train a certain system and a code to perform the way you perform, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gen AI is a next level of automation. I would call that as 3.0 evolution for enterprises. The third evolution is where we are actually now able to leverage Gen AI solutions. ChatGPT, like what Sanjeev sir said, is just one of the solutions where now with algorithms and models. So you had the data foundation layer which was built where all the organizational data about me, Anshul, or Sanjeev is there, let's say, on a system or on a tool or on a cloud, right? And from there, how we are able to then program something on AI where you're able to make the machine intelligent. And now you're actually asking machine to respond to you through either chat, images, videos, reports, content. These are wide areas in which now Gen AI has transitioned. So AI is the next level of Gen AI, where today you can go to, let's say, a collection of videos. Like we actually use a very interesting startup in Bay Area. Collection of videos. We give them the videos and say, can you make a summarized video out of these 10 videos? In Chat GPT, you're opening up Chat GPT to all the news articles and asking questions. And now it is throwing out beautiful essays, answers. There is a startup in Bangalore we work very closely with, right, called CogniQuest, who actually look at a lot of your annual reports of listed companies or non-listed companies, and they're able to summarize the annual report in 1 or 2 pages. So this is the transition that I would explain in a simpler layman term. You translate it to a systems of record, and from systems of record to systems of intelligence. And
Mm-hmm.
now actually you're going beyond where you're making systems of decision making. And that's what Gen AI is. It is helping you summarize a lot of things, contextualize a lot of things, and helping you make decisions faster. It's actually enhancing your productivity in a very simpler manner, right?
And I
Any
think,
questions?
yeah,
Yeah,
I think, Gaurav, thanks for explaining. And we spent some time because we wanted everyone to be on the same page of what GenAI is all about. And I think just to add to that, why it has suddenly revolutionized the way, the speed with which it has reached, common man across the world, right? Across the world is unimaginable. And one of
yeah,
the reasons would be because the interface is so simple, right? Interface is so simple.
absolutely.
It interfaces with your natural language, whatever language you use, and it's behind the scene. There are a lot of algorithms working. So that way, I think it's the ease of use, of the user, of the customer, of the user that has made it revolutionized, and the way it has spread within a few weeks and months across the world is amazing. Is amazing kind of thing. So I think very
Absolutely.
exciting
If
time.
you Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll actually add one very interesting story
Sure.
about a very layman that you could think of, which is my mother, for example, right? When I introduced her to this last year, November, which was 1 year anniversary of ChatGPT, and we actually released an article also about it, of what it has achieved in the last 1 year. I'll tell you how she explained me her understanding of Gen AI, and if she has to
Sure,
explain
go
in
ahead.
her language, right? She
Sure,
used
go
to
ahead.
actually read a lot of, go to libraries, read a lot of book, which is a physical world, right?
Hmm.
Then she actually had a phone where she would read this on an app, multiple apps that she would read, right? Now actually she has a very interesting app, again something from a Bay Area, where she likes to read a lot. So she's like, how can I enhance all of this knowledge? She actually asked them for the summaries of the books. And she tells me that, look, I was able to read only X number of books in the previous times. Today I'm able to actually summarize and listen or learn a lot more faster. I think that's the best example for anybody to understand how the transition has evolved and why the rate of adoption and why it's everywhere, why everybody wants to leverage it, why everybody is talking about it, is because it has quadrupled the way in which you can learn, enhance, and imbibe something at a much faster pace. Somebody who's 60, 64 is able to now say that, hey, I want to look at XY number of books, which I would have taken years to read, but I'm able to summarize, read. And obviously, that has its own challenges as well. But at least is able to say that I'm able to imbibe much more in a shorter span of time. That was a
So
very interesting thought, and I was actually just thinking in the morning today. I'll share it with this group to at least help them understand why
amazing.
that adoption has been great.
Earlier we used to feel that, the technology, only the new generation, uh, you know the new generation are more prone to use technology, but I think that difference is narrowing, is no more there, right? Everyone is using, right?
Absolutely.
My dad used to be, I lost him during COVID, but he used to be hooked to the iPad, right? I mean, all the time. I mean, the way he used to use it was his best friend. So, okay, so let's move on. I think we'll focus more on the HR front, right? That's the core topic today. But I think one starting point, Anshu, to you, amongst various functions, what is your understanding, the usage of Gen AI? It is new, right? Everyone is quickly grappling up using in their own functions, whether it's a marketing function or it's a production or it's an HR or a finance, different functions, right? In any organization's context, I'm talking about. Where do you think HR stands in terms of leveraging Gen AI? And don't talk about only IBM, but across the industry. What are you seeing? Are we as HR, we are lagging behind in terms of using Gen AI for our own function? Where do we stand? And which function do you think have really the first mover in terms of adopting Gen AI for their own function? So what's your impression?
So, from an HR standpoint, and if I look at the industry, I do believe while we are in the early stages of adopting Gen AI, but the potential to transform the function is really vast. And it's, and I will say the pace with which we are moving is even faster. It's so
Mhm.
agile that, I have seen with my experience in the last 1 year at least, smaller to bigger organizations are applying Gen AI in all areas possible.
Mhm.
Depends where exactly that organization is facing the most pain, or encountering most challenges as far as you know uh, automating, simplifying, or eliminating some of the redundant work. Primarily, I've seen talent acquisition has been one of the key functions. If I look at industry, that's where we have the best use
So
case.
Anshu, just sorry, before we dive into the various functions within HR, but where do you see HR versus other functions, within the organization, the usage of Gen AI? I mean, are we the
We
leader
are the
in early
client
adopter?
zero.
We
We
are
are
at.
the client zero. I'm saying we are the client zero, Sanjeev sir, which means we are the first or the first guinea pigs to move, leveraging Gen AI. And at least that's what I've seen in the industry as well. I'm not just talking about IBM, I'm talking about across industry. HR is the first function that has moved fairly quickly in leveraging Gen AI. Others are also following suit.
Okay, okay. I don't know. It is true. I mean, it's your opinion, and maybe that's an IBM statement. But across industry, Gaurav, what's your view? Because
Yeah,
you've
so
seen
I'll
across the industry. What's your view?
absolutely. No, I think I'll give you a slightly larger perspective. If you look at the enterprises in India, we tracked roughly about 1,700 use cases across different functions. And if you ask me, across different functions, as per Unearth Insight analysis that we had done very recently, we've seen surprisingly actually sales and sales enablement. If you look at the shared services functions, you have sales, sales enablement, marketing, finance, HR, and what you call as COEs, or legal and professional services. We have seen sales and sales enablement in India at least has been the fastest or the largest adopter across
Hmm.
use cases, across at least roughly about 1,200 listed players that we have looked at.
Okay.
Some of the MNCs included as well. Some of the GCCs are also included in this. And I'll also tell you why that happened, right? The second largest adopter amongst these 1,200 use cases that we've seen is actually finance.
Hmm.
And in that, I think your question was, where does HR stand? HR is today, statistically speaking, the third largest adopter in terms of the function, and then followed by marketing, right? And then followed by other smaller functions because they're relatively smaller as well. But in terms of impact, if you ask me, or in terms of the dollar spent, HR is the second largest adopter who has actually run paid engagements on Gen AI. Finance is the first adopter. Finance is the first largest adopter in terms of paid engagements. In terms of impact, so there are three different levels you'll have to measure, right? In
Mm-hmm.
terms of impact, again, no surprise for me at least, finance and sales are number one and two because uh, the adoption of financial solutions, the olden days of, let's say, SAP, ERPs deploying, getting deployed, Oracle, Workday, they were also the faster adopters. So they also have what we call as systems of records and data, which is more cleaner data in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that context, if I look at across sectors, across verticals, and then within the functions, I think that's where HR, I would not say is playing a catch-up game. I think largely it is to do, so there is a stage of Gen AI adoption, right? You have a POC to actual
Correct.
deployment and large scale adoption, where I think a lot of Indian, and I can also give you a sectorial view. If you see technology services companies, technology product companies, a lot of them are able to move from POCs to large scale adoption,
Correct.
largely because of two reasons. One is obviously there's a lot of money thrown at the problem or budget that they've been able to allocate. And second, also that a lot of them are already on cloud systems, right? When I look at a lot of your financial services firms in India, I would say are still laggards. Within HR, if I say a lot of your NBFCs, a lot of your core financial services firms which are dealing with your money, my money, they're still much more behind. The banks are actually, so after IT services, the software product firms, the third largest adopters are banks. At least that's how our data indicates that, that's where HR stands, and that's how different industries have evolved. And I can actually see two reasons largely for this.
Mm-hmm.
Because HR in the IT services world, 60% of your spend is on people, right? In the software product world, at least 45-50% of your spend is towards the people. And that's where CHRO also has a seat in the board or in the conference
Makes
calls.
sense.
Right now, result season is going on, right? And if you see all the others, because they don't get a lot of large budgets to look at some of the Gen AI solutions, they've also dabbled with a lot of use cases with, let's say, startups with some freemium or free solutions, and hence a lot of POCs have not moved to large scale adoption. So what I'm talking about is actually POCs to large scale adoptions.
That's a very good summary, I think, and I'm happy that based on your own research, which I'm sure will be indicative of where we are. But I think I'm very happy to see that HR is not a laggard in this. I mean, at least it's in the race, and one of the early adopter. And Anshu, what you're saying from your personal experience, that HR was the first one in the organization to experiment and adopt this, within at least in your organization. That's what you're seeing, which is amazing to see. But I think one message is there: we still have a gap to cover. We still have a road to travel and catch up in terms of usage of that. But Anshu, I interrupted you, but within HR, where do you see it is being used a maximum, where it is easy? Is it talent acquisition as a function, or L&D, or HR business partnering, where, or HR process? Where do you think it
Right
is used?
now, it's across HR. We
But if
started
you have to
with areas
stack,
where
if you
we
have to stack rank, and don't think about only IBM, but in the industry, what you're seeing, which are the functions which have adopted it first, or maximum using Gen AI?
talent acquisition to start with. I think because it has reduced a lot of manual work which we're doing in talent acquisition state function, starting
Mhm.
from resume screening, scheduling interviews, all these aspects which required a lot of human intensive time has been taken away by leveraging Gen AI. So talent acquisition will be the top one. I do believe that Gen AI has also contributed a lot to predictive analytics space because it can summarize information, it can help decision making. So HR analytics is another area which has really been. But now that I'm looking at it, everybody has started that journey. HR
Mhm.
partner organization also has already done the first phase of transformation, and each function of HR is. I can't think of any function in HR that Gen AI is not going to touch.
Okay, and I think we'll go deep into each different function and try to see what are the use cases in talent acquisition, in L&D, in HR partnering or HR processes. So we'll go there. Gaurav, just a query I had in my mind: is Gen AI an elite thing? Is it meant for just large organization, or do you think a small organization like us, can also leverage Gen AI. So can you help me clarify, or is it only for IT or service industry or core manufacturing? Say, for example, mining, can they also use? I'm talking more from the HR point of view perspective right now. We'll stay focused on that.
Sure, sure. No, I think from an HR perspective, I'll give you a very interesting. Again, that's coming in from our proprietary data analysis. We had looked at actually, we'd spoken to people in Microsoft and OpenAI and a couple of other boutique interesting HR Gen AI solutions, right?
Okay.
Interesting companies like MyAlley, which I think Anshu was talking about, automation and talent acquisition. So that helps you schedule more than 20, 30,000 interviews, through it's acquired by Phenom people, very early stages. So I'll tell you within HR, uh, I think it's meant for all organizations of all sizes. If you
So
look
it's
at
not.
adopters,
So first
is not
clarification is
restricted to
it's not
no. So
a
if you look at $2 billion of OpenAI, 50% of that actually comes from SMBs and MSMEs in the US
all
and
right.
across the world, right? For Microsoft, that number is almost like 60-40. 60% of it for Copilot. Gemini is still at an early stage. It still doesn't have paid engagements there. But any Gen AI first solution companies that I'm talking to, I'm actually seeing that the revenue mix clearly indicates that it's either a 50-50 or a 60-40, which indicates that the propensity of some of the mid-size firms trying to use this or small size, even like I think you said, right? What if a 50 people organization has to use something like this? The opportunities for them, I'll tell you why, Sanjeev, are much greater is because their ability to use something like this and move it faster from POC to large scale deployment in their own context is much easier. Take an
True.
example of a 200 people IT services firm. So there is a firm in Trivandrum, which let's say I'm on a board of, right? It's called, it's an interesting services firm, product engineering for startups.
Okay.
They completely started using Gen AI from 2024 for scheduling interviews, for automating a lot of candidate resume parsing, all of that through this, right? They uh, they have gone fully on a large scale POC model, and today for a 200 people firm, that solution which they have built is a must have for them, right? It's
Right.
actually budgeted by the CEO today in their revenue, saying okay, X percentage of my investment has to go towards
So
Gen AI,
Gaurav,
now disrupting other functions.
just a clarification. For example, scheduling interview. Is this technology using AI or generative AI?
It is actually using combination of both. So
Combination of.
if you look
Hmm.
at Ali, My Ali, right? Or if you look at Recruit, which is a Ronnie Screwvala company, My Ali is now a
Correct.
Phenom People company, right? But if you look at when the AI wave happened, what they were able to do, like I said, AI is something that takes orders from you. It's more like
Hmm.
an assistant and it's taking orders. Gen AI is more algorithm creations, right? It is actually then helping, it's giving an interface for the candidates and the interviewee, which could be your technology hiring manager. It is allowing both of them to identify the right slots, and it's helping in the AI world. It would have just given you indication saying, okay, these are possible slots that you could pick up. In the Gen AI world, it is actually integrating both the parties together and helping them come to a conclusion, which is the biggest problem, right? I'm not a talent acquisition professional, but when I talk to TA people, that's the biggest challenge that they would historically face, right? So again, coming back to your question, I think it's meant for all. The success will actually, it at least indicates from the numbers of 5 6 large Anthropic, if you take Palantir and some of the numbers indicate that. And why they're also so gung-ho is that larger adopters still have a lot of challenges of integrating data on systems of records. Even if I have an ATS, right? It could be a
Hmm.
Beamery ATS, it could be a Workday
Anyone.
ATS or some other. The
Anyone.
integration time and use case POC to large scale deployment is large. But in
Right.
smaller firm, I have the ability saying 200 people, they'll only be hiring 20, 30 people. My ability is much faster to close that deal from a POC to a revenue. Uh, so again, if you look at employee life cycle management, performance
Right.
management, anything you look at within HR, at least right now, the numbers indicates that it is meant for all sizes and shapes of organizations.
So Raj, the question is POCs is proof of concept. When you start, right? Gaurav, keep me honest,
Yeah,
right? POC
yeah,
is proof of
absolutely.
concept. When you start something, you don't go all hog. You try as many pilot kind of thing and proof of concept that is it really working, not working before you go there. And typically it is used in when you use agile or design thinking. You create a prototype and then test it and then move forward, right? And Anshu, I know you are a big fan of design thinking and agile HR. Will talk about it as we go along. So, Anshu, coming to you, is it a costly thing? I mean, is it a free thing? I mean, a lot of Gen AI tools are free, right? Today available, right? You can, as a user, use it. But from the HR point of view, is it something very costly application to use, or from different organizations or the service provider, or it is simple?
Before I come to the cost part of it, Sajid sir, because you said the use of Gen AI in HR. HR is an area where we have to be very careful with Gen AI. The reason
Hmm.
I say that is because a lot of data or information that we deal with is sensitive in nature. We're dealing with personal information,
Personal and
sensitive
sensitive
personal
information,
information.
correct.
Yeah, so we need to be very careful. There are a lot of free tools available, but can you put your organization HR data into those free tools? It's not the right thing to do. Now, from an
That's a great point.
infrastructure perspective, yeah, from an infrastructure perspective, obviously you need, like Gaurav also mentioned, that if you're coming from a technology company, it's you have your own platform. Cloud computing is one foundation that you need to be able to put Gen AI to use at scale. And if you have that, then obviously it's the way to go. But if you're not a technology company, then you have dependence on third party vendors to be able to facilitate that for you. And that comes with a cost, which is the inference cost for us to operate. That's to be very precise on how the cost looks like. But data is cost. Now,
Data is
data
new
is
oil,
also
as
very valuable. So we need to kind of
Yeah.
understand that we can't just put out that data on free platforms, because that's going to be our competitive advantage in the new world,
so I
and
think
especially Gen AI.
absolutely, and I think we'll talk about it because a lot of us who may be thinking, we have many HR professionals here or business leaders where they're thinking of using Gen AI and they're not sure whether in HR, where should we use, where we can't use. So I think one of the thing is, and we will take your expertise, Gaurav and Anshu, what precaution we should take, when leveraging Gen AI for HR particularly, which are the easier way where we don't have dealing with personal and sensitive information, what precaution we should take, right? I think we'll cover that. Now, Gaurav, from your personal experience point of view, and whatever research you have done, what you have seen, right? What are the precautions? I mean, because HR, incidentally, and finance also, for that matter, dealing with a lot of
Yeah.
confidential information, right? Most of the functions, actually, I would say. I mean, some part of them, the data they deal with is confidential, right? Organizational dependent, and we are putting on some systems. So, what precautions one should take? Is it check there? How do we check whether it's a safe tool or not? So, what are the checks we should go for?
I think if you look at across, whether it's HR, whether it's finance, you take
Anything?
any functions for that matter, right? I think the basic checks, if I look at currently the largest adopters from US, Europe to India, and within, like I said, across functions, I think the basic checks that you would look at is like what Anshu said, right? I think it is not even for the POCs. There are a lot of interesting startups, a lot of early stage to mature startups. To, let's say, large organizations, like for example, I know one of my friend and customer who use, let's say, OpenAI's paid version. November they launched, in December they started using it for JD automation, internal fulfillment in the IT services world, right? So I think it is better to go with known solutions, known products, because known solutions and products will make sure that a lot of your data remains in a certain infrastructure, whether it's performance management data, employee lifecycle data, let's say career management is where you want to deploy it, or let's say hiring especially is a lot more sensitive data there as well, right?
True.
A lot of people's information can get leaked. I think the first thing that people have to be cautious about is not to use unknown tools and unknown solutions which have
So
not
how
been
do we,
leveraged.
sorry to interrupt you. I mean, I'm a layman, right? I mean, I know, but I mean, some of us may not be knowing. I mean, how do we know which is a known tool, a non-tool? I mean, for example, people say it is a GDPR compliant. I mean, so is there a compliance standard that we should check against, that are you complying with this standard before we buy? Like you have ISI or GDPR compliant. So how do we check?
I think fundamentally, as of today, because a lot of your GDPR and other compliance is still at a very early stage, I think I will actually tell you how. Let's say if somebody comes to you and say, "Hey, Sanjeev, for your organization, I can automate your scheduling itself for this particular event that you're running, virtual event that you're running." You need to look at what are the GPUs and on chips and the data infrastructure that they use. More than certification, ask them where is your data hosted. Are you using NVIDIA? Are you using AMD? Are you using or some other ready to deploy solution, which eventually is going to be on any of
Compliant.
these chips and infrastructure platforms? Look at what they are and are they credible platforms to use, right?
All right.
Is your solution, let's say, for example, if Phenom people comes to you, or if I come to you tomorrow and I say, hey, I have a reneg management solution, I have an attrition predict management solution. You just need to ask them for the tech stack. The minute you look at their tech stack and you see that, hey, they have built an algorithm which can give you generative AI based solutions to saying, hey, is Gaurav at the flight risk of attrition? So they have built that solution on back of either a Google Cloud, Amazon Cloud, Azure, that eventually is either using NVIDIA, Qualcomm, AMD, or Intel. The minute you see some of the known names, you know that, okay, some of your data is getting protected. Then the question that you need to ask is, okay, is your algorithm multi-tenant or single organization? Which means if, let's say, I go to Anshul and say, hey, for IBM, I will build this customized algorithm. You use this. This is meant only for you, which means it is
Mhm.
reading IBM employees data and it is giving you generative AI insight. Now, 4 years down the line or 2 years down the line, let's say if Gaurav or Anshu has moved from that company to another company, actually that engine knows Gaurav's data from the past organization and instance as well. So is it a single tenant or a multi-tenant is the next question that you need to ask. I think these are two, three fundamental checks that you do. And the minute you do this, the concept of hallucination, which people say, right? What is hallucination? If you understand in a very layman language, if I haven't had enough sugar and if I have some issues, I will start hallucinating, right? Which means I will start spitting out things which doesn't make sense. Now imagine this use case itself, this example where Gaurav was, let's say, in HCL and today he's at Unearth Insight, and the same vendor is actually using this data, is able to actually understand and it will start hallucinating and giving you insights maybe from the past
In
organization
the past.
and say, okay,
Wow.
Maze is at a past risk of exiting, right? So the question of multi-tenant is his record begins and ends in that organization. If
And
it
that's
is
what you recommend.
multi-tenant,
That's what you recommend for very sensitive data that
extremely
we
sensitive data.
things.
Yeah.
And I think Anshu, your views also. This is very important part because I have spoken to a lot of people in HR. They said when we talk about Gen AI, the one of the biggest issue is about the data privacy and the sensitive information going out. So I think one thing you said that single instance rather than the multi instance, right? That's what you mentioned. Secondly, could be about the cloud. It could be private cloud that you could host the data
Yeah.
on, right? Or public cloud, that could be another decision. Even public cloud, there are technologies where it can be safe, right? I mean, you can be sure of their service provider who will ensure their safety, but you have to go to the reputed service provider if you don't have your own cloud network, right? So Anshu, anything you want to add to what Gaurav is saying, because that's an important part before even we get into further using Gen AI for HR. What
No, I think he's pretty much covered the foundations that
foundation
we
of it?
also keep in mind, for anybody who's a layman to understand what are the two, three key things that we need to first look at before we start leveraging Gen AI.
All right. So let's take maybe a few examples. I mean, it'll be a good idea because I think what we have done so far is we have understood what Gen AI is, what are the trends going on, where does HR stand compared to other functions on the usage of Gen AI, right? And one of the biggest topic and the dilemma that all of us would have, how safe it is to use Gen AI for HR particularly, especially sensitive functions like performance management or talent acquisition, right, etc., where a lot of sensitive information is available. So you have given some idea, right? And audience, in case you have further query, put on the chat here and we'll try to answer those through our experts. If you have any other doubt or questions in your mind about data privacy and the system, so let's go to the use cases. Anshu, maybe if you want to pick up, just give an example of uh, which, if you can, the one that you have used in your organization or what you have seen a good example of usage of Gen AI and what value does it bring to us as HR professionals and to the business? Take any example, say in talent acquisition. You mentioned they're using left and right. So would you give an example? How can we use Gen AI for talent
I'm
acquisition?
going to move away from talent acquisition and talk about another area, Sanjeev sir, because people think talent acquisition is the only area. I think career mobility is the other area where we leverage Gen AI, or we're leveraging Gen AI to reap its benefit. Specifically, looking at how can we really eliminate or maybe simplify some of the labor intensive work. And you've been with IBM, you understand how labor intensive was our promotion process, right? The kind of checks we used to do, the
Oh,
different parameters. Let me take you back in time and let me remind you the Excel files that we were working with, the
yes.
nomination process, going to the business leaders, seeking their inputs, and then we have to stick
It's
to the
tough.
timelines, by the way, because
Mhm.
we have a budget that will expire if we don't utilize it in time. So if you recall, this
Comp
was an
planner. I
area.
remember comp planner. There's a budget in the comp planner. Yes, I remember that.
So now, even the business unit specific promotion process, we've actually leveraged, Gen AI to be able to simplify that and
So just explain
literally.
to us how, what have you done, and which I think all of us
So
will be
I'll
interested to know.
in a layman term how we were using that process earlier and what does it look like in the new
Yes,
scheme
please
of
go ahead.
things. So
Yeah,
earlier we used to have an HR business partner who would work with business leaders and their next line of leaders to seek nominations. And this
true,
was done through a spreadsheet where we will capture all employee details, right?
true.
Starting from the employee name, how much time they've spent in the
And
organization, in that band, what are
mm,
the skills, are those market relevant, business valued skills, and all those checks we had to do.
true,
After that, what's the business justification? Why are we doing it? Does that really qualify for a promotion, or we can actually just look at an increment? All of those checks HR partners were doing, and then working on those huge data files. And then even after that was done, approvals were sought, we would work through with the managers to raise the promotion. That was another labor intensive process. Now, by creating a digital assistant which communicates directly with the managers, we've fed in all the parameters within that system. So now the manager can submit the nomination by communicating with a tool that's called it's a hero tool that we've kind of introduced for promotion nomination process.
mhm,
And all of the guardrails that we need to stick by are already fed into the back end, which I talked about from an employee perspective. Are they meeting those parameters? Once the manager submits the nomination, through the same interface, the upline can review the nomination, give their approval, and it's all automated. The HR leader has just the final summary. So that's where the decision making becomes easier, Gaurav. Now HR partners are doing a decision making role because they can look at the summary and
that's
then
interesting.
really advise the business.
So,
So
so in
this is one
this
use
hero,
case.
yeah, Anshu, just help me understand this tool. And guys, if you have any further question, let's ask Anshu, because this seems interesting. It would have saved a lot of hours and hours of of the HR team and the managers in putting data. So, is this hero tool doing some intelligence in interpreting the data and making some recommendations, or it is just compiling the data? What
It
does
is
it do?
doing both. It is
Both.
doing the consolidation, and then when it does provide a summary view, which is a dashboard view, it draws up the insights in terms
Ah,
of giving, this
recommendation.
geography has these many, when it gets consolidated within this geo, these many nominations, this band, this gender, and things like that. So all of those details can be looked at, and then a decision can be made. So yes, it has both the consolidation aspect and also the data insights, then driving the actionable results as well. So helping the decision making for the team. So that's one use case. If you allow me an opportunity, I can also talk about the other use case, which is the most popular one, which is the Ask HR digital assistant.
Go ahead.
And I think
This is HR
that's
operations, employee assistance or employee queries, answering
Even the
those.
managers,
Even the
because earlier
managers.
we used to have HR partners aligned to all managers, but
Mm,
now in the way we've evolved the digital assistant, it is enabled to provide support to not just employees, but managers,
mm,
uplines, and in fact, uplines can open a complex request for the specific areas where they need human support, which means that at the back end, we're kind of leveraging technology and the strength of human power. It's all coming together to be able to provide the support that's needed. So Ask HR is our digital assistant to handle all of the HR related queries. It could be from employees, managers, and even leaders in the
So
new
it is
scheme of
just a
things.
simple, is it some, I mean, is it simple query like how many leaves are in my account, things like that, or it is
It is
interpreting
next
it
level of
holistic, next
automation
level?
as well. So
Give
if
an
you
example.
want, as a
Specific.
manager,
Hmm.
you want to update the information or you want to transfer an employee, you can actually communicate with a digital assistant and it will perform that transaction on your behalf.
So I remember, I mean, when we introduced SAP was there or Workday, where HR partner used to sit with the manager, and the biggest task manager were struggling with was how to transfer employee from one department to other, and HR partner used to sit with them and help them do this. So you can now say, ask HR, just tell them as a command, and they will do the action, right? Wow,
Correct.
that's amazing. So Shraddha has a question. Shraddha, yes, why don't you unmute yourself and ask the question? Shraddha, can you unmute yourself? Or maybe type it in the chat if you can't unmute yourself. Please do that. And Kalyan, in the meantime, can you check if team is able to unmute them? Is there a systematic, everyone is muted? Just check on that. So Shraddha, in the meantime, can I request you to put your question in the chat? I don't know. I'm getting it checked. It should not be disabled. Unmute button. It should be yes. So, but in the meantime, why don't you put on the chat? All right. So, is the role of manager only reviewing the approving the same? So there's a question from Raj, Anshu, that they're saying is the role of a manager in this process is just approving it, whatever nominations are coming. What's the role of a manager?
So, the role of a manager, and I'm sure Sanjeev sir can add as well. Even before Gen AI came, we did not just want managers to approve or reject nomination. They play a critical role in ensuring that they're helping manage the career of their teams.
Mm-hmm.
And in that specific process, the promotion process, and because it's now getting connected to internal career mobility, there are different aspects. But to answer your question, it's not just approving the nomination. It's working with the employee on helping them manage their career. If the candidate is not ready for promotion, and let's say the manager has to decline the promotion or not nominate the employee, what are the additional actions that manager will do to be able to coach the employee to get ready for? And we always talk about growth not just vertically but laterally, horizontally, right? How do you kind of really grow as a professional? So that's a concept that Sanjeev sir can talk even better than me because he was my manager once. But in that specific tool, it is even giving direction and guidance to managers on, in case the candidate is not getting promoted, what are some additional things that you can do, additional actions that you can do?
So there's a very interesting question from Vic, if I read the name correctly, and very important one. Where's the human element in this? Say Ask HR or things like that. So we are not putting only Ask HR of IBM on spot, but there are multiple tools like this where they're virtual assistants who are intelligent. They are giving queries, they are answering and helping managers or the employees. But is there an element of empathy, and what about employee experience? I mean, I know it'll be faster, but are they able to, express or display empathy with the person who is maybe aggrieved or agitated asking a question?
I'm so glad you asked this question because this was the theme of the white paper that I had actually written
Why
six
don't you
months
take
ago.
2 3 minutes to talk about it? And Gaurav, I'm come to you. I know you have
Yeah.
many good examples to share on how we can use Gen AI. Our idea is to create an excitement amongst our HR professionals to explore, test,
No,
and
no,
use
absolutely. Very happy
in
with
a
the kind
in a
of questions,
in a
Sandeep.
in a guarded way, so that we don't mess up. We, use it in a very responsible way. But I think there's a
True.
huge opportunity, and we want to see HR as the one of the top user of Gen AI, if not second or the third, right? So talk about empathy, Anshu, and what white paper you wrote.
So the subject of the white paper I've already talked about, which was humanizing HR technology with all the technological advancements that we were looking at. I will also encourage all of you to read a beautiful study that our earlier CHRO Diane Gerson had done, which was accelerating the journey to HR 3.0. And that's where she talked about, and the reason I'm sharing this because this will give you context to why I kind of really shared my point of view on this because she talked about how, of all the ramifications that were rocking the world of business today, the implications for people were arguably the most profound one.
Mm-hmm.
And she talked about how at the heart of all these changes were people, people getting impacted, whether it was making decisions for people, people who were implementing changes, people who were getting impacted with the changes. So all
Mm-hmm.
of this, while we are leveraging technology and all the learnings that we took from the pandemic, while it's over and it's behind us, there was a lot of this conversation that started during that time as well because people became remote. There is the new hybrid way of working and things like that. And now we introduce technology in the middle of all of this, which is not going to really be helpful if we take the human touch away. So the white paper actually talked about how can we go beyond the functional capabilities of technology and create experiences that replicate human interaction and empathy is one part, but really leveraging technology in a way where people feel that they're not missing the human touch as much as possible,
As
right?
much as.
And how technology can be an enabler in that journey. We talked about the concept of how we can enhance the user experience or engagement. It could be an employee, it could be a manager, really engaging with them in a more authentic and meaningful way. There were some recommendations that we made in terms of changing the technology to provide that personalized responses, understanding the context with Gen AI, and then exhibit with their responses, a sense of empathy. Now, also, I talked about the power of data here, right? How we can gather and analyze the vast amount of information for the user. User could be the employee or the manager to deliver the tailored experience. And we've kind of talked about how all of that information can be leveraged when that person comes to, let's say, a technology like Ask HR, that have a digital assistant, how it can use that information to communicate and help the persona that interacts with the digital assistant. And then I've covered all of these other aspects on anticipating the persona needs, behavior patterns and things like that. uh, the information is actually IP, but I'll see what I can make you, available for the audience who
Whatever
are
is available,
interested.
please share, because I think that's an important aspect. In fact, this is most debated when we use talk about, using Gen AI for HR, is that are we losing that human touch, right? And I think that it will be worse that if we take away that human touch from the function just because of process efficiency, because experience is what we are looking at, isn't it? So that we're talking about. So
Yeah,
please
absolutely.
say, in case you have anything which is shareable from your insights about how we can humanize this technology, will be wonderful to share, right? Thank you, Anshu, for sharing your experience. And Gaurav, coming to you, can you talk about, you did some primary research on use of Gen AI across industries and Gen AI for HR, actually, in particular, I'm interested in right now. So share with us some very striking, use cases that we all can learn from and feel excited about briefly. So go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think very happy with the kind of questions people have put out, right? So,
True.
so I'll actually take a cue from there itself, and I'll talk
Sure.
about the human element. See, when we talk about HR, my learning in the last 2+ decades of working across 5, 6 organizations and now building Unearth Insight and working with different customers is within HR. And again, you guys are all HR professionals, so keep me honest there. One of the biggest challenge that, and I'll pick up from where Anju left, right, on the empathy and the human element of it. I'll ask a very important question, and if people, audiences can be unmuted for this. And Sanjeev, maybe you have been a hardcore HR professional. I'll tell you, fortunately, unfortunately, and I would actually say unfortunately, 60-70% of the actual humanized processes, when we actually did the use case analysis, a lot of business stakeholders and HR stakeholders, what they were trying to actually make best use of from the transition 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0,
Dot
right?
zero.
Which is from converting a lot of documents on cloud and then integrating AI and now Gen AI. I'll tell you, 70% of people came back to us and they said, 67 out of 9 hours a day in my particular schedule, I spend 6 hours just gathering information to assist someone. Simple
Hmm.
example of, let's say, succession plan. I work with, let's say, a CEO of an organization or a board of directors, and I'm giving you real examples, right? And I'll
Hmm.
talk about the tool as well. Succession planning is a very, very humanized process. You need to know the kind of leaders in your organization, the pedigree they carry, all the information, all the data about what they have achieved in the organization. We come from HCL where this is taken very seriously. In organizations like Tata or TCS, you'll see majority of the CEOs are in-house, right? They take it extremely seriously. Now, if you look at a process like this, Sanjeev, when we talked about, somebody came to us and said, should we use something like this? Is it credible? Is it ethical? What we realized is 70% of HR management heads are spending time just gathering information from multiple sources, gathering feedback about this leader from 20 other leaders. And it's
So,
actually not on systems and tools. Now, if you are able to actually take out, we actually drew a parallel. You talked about drawing parallels from industries. We actually saw that how did a front end bank employee
employee.
showcase empathy towards you as Sanjeev. If you were a 50-year-old man who walked into the bank and said, "Hey, I have an issue in my passbook and it shows that there is a wrong entry here." If that person sitting on the other side of the desk is spending half an hour just figuring out what it is, he will not be able to actually show empathy to you and say, "Hey, why don't you sit down, take a glass of water, and I'll help you with this because I have all of this data at the click of a button." Exact same parallel, we said, let's draw this and put this in the succession planning and career management. All of you as HR professionals, I don't know if you're able to mute. I have seen that in the use case that we tried to solve for one of the US clients for us, they said, I want to eliminate this. My HR BPs and my succession planning team wants to show empathy to all these 6 potential CEO candidates or CHRO candidates. And I want to get an unbiased information about all of what they have done. And that's where tools like Ultipro, which is from a firm called UKG, it's a patented solution that helps you actually screen a lot of data from multiple solutions and systems and gives you a summarized view of saying
And
good, bad,
this is the data about senior employees who are potential, say, CEOs or leadership
CEOs,
position,
CHROs,
and it
CFOs.
generates data from within the organization from multiple
Yeah.
sources, right?
So the ability that you need, and I'll again ask that question to all the HR professionals here, right? What do you need if you have to take a decision that in your house itself, that you have to be the head of the house who's actually fantastic at managing finances? You will see your own historical data and record. And are you actually good at managing, or is your wife good at managing finances? Or you want to actually, take care of kids, who should be people who actually are good with kids. Similar
Hmm.
data, Altipro, and many other tools I can list out. Maybe after this, I will actually share a list of tools for each of these areas, right? That we actually have seen used getting globally. What it is able to do is it's able to pull out financial information from the finance systems, their goal systems, their performance management systems, a lot of feedback 360, because a lot of leaders also come with a lot of feedback, right? That they received from other
Hmm.
leaders as well. So the 360-degree feedback about them. If it is able to concise and give it to you as Sanjeev, and I'll ask this question to you, right? You've been at IBM. If I was giving you something like this in a matter of couple of hours or day, now
I'll take you out for
this
lunch. Definitely.
Okay, I will actually ask you to take me for a drink as well along with lunch. But I'll tell you what you will do, right? You will actually then spend the remaining 5 hours meeting each one of them
True.
and understanding that, hey, this is the ethos of my organization. This is how my 1 lakh people organization is. And if this guy has to take over as a CFO, CHRO, or CEO, I have all the statistical data elements, all the insights. I will actually do what a human resource is supposed to do. I will meet, spend time with him, and then gather insights, which will help me then take a powerful decision. No GenAI solution, at least in the enterprises that we have seen getting deployed or we have evaluated the impact of this, nobody says that GenAI is going to replace the human decisioning. Human decision making will still remain, but what it is doing is it's allowing that 5, 6 hours of your additional time where you're spending time with the person and then saying, hey, this is what my GenAI solution says that ABCD person is getting score of 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, whatever. But my personal conversation, if I'm able to gather that, put it back into the GenAI solution, right? UltiPro or any other solution that you put, and then you actually create another score out of it, then actually you are actually putting your own judgment plus what the data is given to you, and then saying, hey, as per me, this is 3 people who are potentially suited for CEOs. As per the data, this is what it's showing. Now you take that and debate it out
So
with
where
your
is this
board
being
and say,
used, Gaurav, in your, I mean, great example, and it's a very complex process, complex. Where do you think,
extremely.
if you can share what kind of organizations are using this Gen AI for this succession planning? I mean,
So I'll tell you, career management and succession planning is still not very mature in India in terms of the way it's getting
okay,
used, even across tech services firms. But I can tell you, in largely in US and UK geography, a lot of your software product development firms, a lot of your BFSI, largely financial services, banks have still been laggards in adopting. But a lot of your financial services firms have also started using this. But like I said, they also understand that uh, GenAI is a result of all the content which is available. It can't replace human emotion, human empathy. I'll give you one other very real life example of one of the financial services firm. I can't name the firm, but a
absolutely
very
fine. We
big
respect that.
financial services firm which actually tried using this. They actually found 4 CFO potentials through this analysis, and then eventually, when the HR lead or the employee management lead or head actually spoke to all 4 of them, he realized one of them is actually going through certain personal challenges and issues and may not be ready to pick up or pick something like that, right? Conventional knowledge would have said that, okay, that would possibly mean he'll score down. But the HRBP there said, okay, this is the best CFO that you could have because while he's battling a challenge there, but he's somebody that historically has battled such challenges, which is not there in any recorded statements. He's a sportsman who's actually come out, won state level sports, multiple other things which are not there in the enterprise data, but the HRBP knew the person individually. He embeds this data and says, okay, this is your potential CFO. Today, by the way, that individual is actually running it as a CFO and running fairly decently, right? So
Mhm.
there are examples of financial services firms. In fact, pharma has now started utilizing this. But like I said, GenAI is only as good as what data that you embed into it and the human judgment that you embed into it. So I think succession planning, career management, there are solutions. There's a tool called Career Path Finder. Again, a lot of these are global tools, not in India. Fairly expensive to use and will also mean that you'll have to have fairly robust data systems. But in career management, learning guides, learning solution areas, and in succession planning, I think a lot of empathy is already getting embedded. And I think it's important for us to leverage a lot of that and also understand. And again, for all the HR professionals, that do you want to be spending 7 hours just gathering information, or let a solution, a GenAI solution, gather that for you? And you actually want to spend time with people and then enhance with the data plus the personal, interpersonal information that you've gathered about the person. That's where I will
So,
actually leave it.
so I think great. I mean, I know we went into depth in explaining because it's very complex, this succession planning at a leadership level. It can be time taking and it can be exhausting. But I think what you mentioned is a great example of use of Gen AI for succession planning. And Anshu, coming to you, uh, can you also touch upon, how, and you attended a conference today at ETHR, you were talking more about learning L&D function and how Gen AI can help. I've seen so many examples and use cases that I keep hearing that how you can personalize. In fact, we had a session on this platform on personalizing the learning, right? For the employees, how can we personalize those experiences for the employees? So, in learning, any example you want to share how GenAI can help create a personalized learning plan for an employee, because which humanly is impossible for a training manager to do it, actually, because impossible. But with use of GenAI, creating a personalized learning plan based on the role where the person is it happening? Can you share some example?
It so it is, like I said, it is being explored, and we definitely are looking at. So before I talk about learning, how do we assess the learning requirements? That's an
Mhm.
area where we're leveraging Gen
True.
AI as well, because you have to really understand where the person is in terms of their skills and capabilities. Earlier, we used to do skill assessments, make people do the expertise assessment, if you recall, and then the manager would assess their expertise levels and things like that. Now, with all the data and information that we have about the individual, there is already a skills heat map that gets built and talks about, if you're in the current role, if you want to continue to grow, here are some recommendations that Gen AI, leveraging Gen AI, you can make. And
And these
I
recommendations are not only learning, but could be also what kind of experiences you need,
experiences they
right?
can get,
Okay.
experiences that you can get.
So it's like
And
a
I also
career
want to,
coach. It's like a career
yeah,
coach.
career coach. And if you recall, and Gaurav also mentioned career pathways, I want to kind of also talk about the career possibilities on the horizon. So, for example, currently I'm the HR transformation leader, but how did I kind of really land into that opportunity? Because looking at my entire work history, which IBM has, it tells what are the skills that I have with my current role, what are the capabilities that I've gained in, over the years, and basis that really draw up what are the potential career paths that I can move into, right?
Mm.
It is not just HR partner. I can go into compensation because I've done the skill. Learning and development is the other area. And if I take the combination, here are the opportunities. So it matches with our internal opportunity portal to see what are the opportunities that are available with the current supply of skills that I have, and what are some of the actions that I have to take on the way to be able to progress in my career if I need to go into that career path. So that is another use case that I wanted to touch upon. So it is not just about learning, but it's overall career management
About
of an
career
employee,
growth.
and it's very personalized because it's
And
looking
that
at
way, I
your
think this
personal
Yeah.
has
information.
huge implication for employee retention, the talent retention, and also, I think the internal fulfillment. I remember my days when I was a global tea leader in IBM in one of the view. I mean, the internal fulfillment is makes so much of sense, right? Because the cost of getting a person from outside and you lose people to the competition doesn't make sense, right? So the only thing, people had intention but not enabled. The system was not enabling, especially in a complex large organization. Person can really feel lost. So Gen AI is actually helping. Now, Gaurav, coming to you, one important question, and we'll take some questions from the audience. And sorry, guys, I mean, there was an
Yeah.
issue about unmuting. Now people can unmute, so we'll ask some of the audience to participant to ask questions live here. But before we go there, Gaurav, one question: how do we prepare? What is your understanding? You understand technology very well. If HR people, HR professionals have to use Gen AI, right? Is there a particular skill they need to acquire? For example, prompt engineering, is becoming very popular. That's very important skill to be able to use Gen AI, right? Prompt engineering. In fact, I heard that is a hotshot skill in the industry, across the industries, the prompt engineer, right? What used to be data scientist today is a prompt engineer, right? So
Yeah.
what skills and HR, and Anshu, you can also add on to what Gaurav is saying. If we all have to use Gen AI for HR, what do we need to upskill ourselves for? Is it prompt engineering? Is it understanding GI basic course, or anyone can use it? It doesn't need anything, any particular requirement training. Go ahead.
Sure. I think couple of skills. I think one is the fundamental technology, and I'll actually also touch upon what Madhavi has put there as a comment, right? I think three or four critical, I would say, skills and checks that people would have to keep in mind as they grow in the HR space, right? And a lot of people are now, if you look at the transformation that's happening with Gen AI of the HR systems or HCMs itself, the larger 4 or 5 larger players that capture at least 60-70% of the HCM market share have started acquiring or integrating Gen AI solutions. With that, I think one or two critical elements, especially two critical skills. One is the basic foundational understanding of what is Gen AI all about and what each of these tools have to offer. What are the fundamental technologies on which, or the frameworks on which they are built. Second comes the prompt engineering skill that you talked about. Right now, will you and me or even HR professionals need to use prompt engineering? That's actually a debatable topic right now, and I'll tell you why. People are also talking about self-service, the movement towards
Self-service.
self-service. What I
Hmm.
mean by self-service is, for example, to Madhuri's point, if Altipro would have had a lot more data of, let's say, you and me or a couple of other potential CFOs in the companies, a lot of data that exists within the system, a lot of data that doesn't exist within the system. And if we were to, give this directly to a couple of, people in the board and say, hey, why don't you look at this and use it for yourself? In that, if the industry moves, and I'll tell you, there are two kinds of moves that are happening, right? With a lot of HCM getting underlined Gen AI solution, there is one school of thought that says, hey, for internal fulfillment, I want an Amazon like experience. I'm the guy who's hiring. You are the guy who's enabling hiring for me. But give me a platform which can help me do this myself, which is called the self services model. There's one
True.
school of thought which is saying, let's go towards self services and let HR professionals, they are enablers today, but become intelligent enablers as we go forward. So underlining understanding of the Gen AI based HCM systems, that will be a primary skill, which is a little bit of techno-functional, as I would say. HR professionals will have to get a lot more techno-functionals because they'll have to have a slightly deeper understanding of which tools works and which doesn't work. And if Altipro is something that you're planning to implement, you should also understand how much quality data do you have. The second skill comes to the data piece, which I talked about,
Hmm.
is what we call as content or data sensitivity, right? Or data sanitization. What I mean by that is, as
That's
an
very
HR
basic.
professionals,
That's a very,
you
very
will,
basic in any analytics,
yeah,
actually.
correct. No, in any decision making, I think not
True.
even analytics. I would say if you just want to make a simple decision of just choosing for a vacation, for example, there's an interesting company which helps you design your own travel vacations, right? How does that happen? Because it understands that, hey, on my Facebook page, it shows or it has seen data that I generally go to temples. Whenever I land, I generally book a place which is closer to city center and all of that. It's able to personalize. It's very basic data, right? I think understanding what data is matured in your HR function and what data is not so matured is also very critical. And that's what we call as data sensitization or core basic, data assessments and analysis skills, which will help you understand that, hey, I want to be able to deploy a predictive analytics tool, but my only predictive analytics tool will be only as good as my internal data, or do I also need some external data about the employee and what's the kind of digital footprint he's leaving outside? That will be another skill to understand, a very important skill for you to understand what use cases you pick and move faster with, right? The maturity of technology, the maturity of data, and then how do you also plug those data gaps? So what I mean by data sensitization is not just about going to your CHRO and saying, hey, you know what, for doing, let's say, internal fulfillment, I do not have, I'll give you a very classic example since you touched upon internal fulfillment. One of the a patented solution which actually does, let's say, very well with one of the largest IT services firms in the US and in India, but when they go to a mid-sized firm for doing internal fulfillment, they fail miserably. Is the
Hmm.
same technology, is the same patented solution, exactly similar kind of revenue mix, services mix, almost similar kind of people and skills. Why does it fail? Because the firm doesn't understand that a lot of their people's updated project information, what you call as project management systems, in that organization doesn't have enough information about the recent, and they have a and I'm getting into a little more in depth, but in that case, they didn't record a lot of their recent projects and solutions. Somebody
Uh,
worked on ERP, Workday ERP, Success Factor
so this is one,
ERP.
Gaurav, sorry to interrupt you, but I think this is an important element when we are choosing which Gen
Absolutely.
AI application tool to use. We must uh, closely examine, does this tool fit for my kind of industry, the
Yeah.
size of organization, the nature of business we have. the data maturity, the rigor that we have, or data sanitized, process adherence, so that we
Absolutely.
must really see that. Otherwise, we can spend a lot of money and not be able
And
to use
time.
that, and not
Yeah.
to be able to use that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that is a very, very essential skills. As we
Mhm.
speak, everybody wants to, go on this bandwagon of Gen AI and wants to deploy technology. But the first question I ask them is, do you have the basic underlying systems in the organization? First question. And as HR professional, that will become important for you to understand. Are your upstream systems talking to your downstream systems? What I mean, and I'll simplify it for you, is your ATS talking to your HCM? Are they both integrated? Because on one side, you have somebody who is a candidate who's eventually going to turn into becoming an employee. And if you don't have the right systems, and in the future, you want to do something called as hero profiling, saying, hey, I retain these kind of people. How can I find more such heroes externally? If the two systems don't talk to each other, that's going to be a very essential skill. You can call it as HR advisory, using data sensitivity and analysis. You can become as Gen AI specialist within HR. That's another very, very emerging and a big skill. And it's not just consulting firms like us or independent consultants, but internally, I feel the internal HR team will be much better equipped to actually do that sort of an advisory. A lot of center of
So, for
excellences are getting
example,
formed.
Anshu, in her role, she amongst
Yeah,
various sector professionals is one who is much more aware and has much
exactly.
more a deeper expertise and knowledge about how Gen AI can be used within HR versus
Absolutely.
everyone going through it. It's okay if some of you are champions and then can help rest of the organization, right? But one basic level. So I think, Anshu, coming to you, thanks, Gaurav, for that insight. Anything else you want to add in terms of what skills HR should have before we start thinking of using Gen AI?
I think
I
at an
think,
individual,
sorry.
sorry, I wasn't sure if the question was for me.
Go ahead, Anshu. I mean, we'll
Yeah, yeah,
come
go
to
ahead.
one
I
second.
will talk from experience, right? And I'm not going to talk from the hat of an HR transformation leader, but a regular HR professional. I don't think HR professionals need to be tech wizards. Let's be very clear. They just need to have a
That's a relief.
basic yeah,
That's a
that's
relief.
they just need a basic understanding of, and like you said, the interface is so simple to use that for their day-to-day activities, if they keep understand the guardrails and the data sensitivity part, they can actually leverage and become more productive in their role. And I also believe prompt engineering is also a buzzword. I came from a learning background where I was an expert in instructional design. If I can design training solution, give instructions, simply it's giving instruction to that digital assistant to communicate and provide you the information. So as and like we say,
So,
one
are
is
you
you
saying
need
this prompt engineering is overhyped?
it is, because if you
Okay.
really can give good, effective instruction, and that comes from your SME knowledge on the subject as well, right? Because
Mm.
if I'm coming from an HR domain, I understand HR as a domain really well. My questions will be very specific. So if you are an SME in your domain and you understand the basic of Gen AI, you can actually give them a very good or effective prompts. It's not, and I've done it. We've been using something internally which is called Sidekick. It's really cool platform to use. So it's overhyped. I do believe you don't need to be a tech wizard.
So, I think that's a
Every
great.
HR professional can use Gen AI
So,
with basic understanding.
one big takeaway that I'm taking from you, Anshu, and Gaurav from you. One, simple: Gen AI is not an elite thing. It can be used only by a large organization, multinationals, or IT or services company. Anyone can use it. Number one. Number one. Number two, it's not too complex, and HR professionals need not be tech wizards to be able to use this. I mean,
Yeah.
but you should have basic understanding and appreciation about it. So I think some basic foundational course or understanding about what Gen AI can do or not do, precaution, that should be enough. But with that, just application of mind, I mean, you can start using Gen AI. Is that what I'm getting right from you? That's a relief, actually. I thought, I mean, it can be complex and you need to really learn prompt engineering before you start using it. That's not the case, right? Wow.
No, absolutely. Now, I'll just add in one other context, right? Couple of like Sanjeev, you and I know, right? So being at HCL and a lot of the other firms, couple of HR professionals comes and ask, "Hey, what should I learn? Is there a course that I should go and learn? Are this?" I just tell them one basic thing: make sure that you look at all the GenAI videos and all the sessions like this which are happening, all the adopters who are actually coming and talking about their own case studies. Meet
Yeah.
your friends out there, talk to your colleagues, talk to your counterparts in a bank, in a Unilever, and other places, and ask them, hey, what tools are you using? How are you using it? And I can tell you, just by doing that, you don't need to even go into a lot of demos of lot of tools. I know, a couple of people who actually look at n number of demos of various tools. That really is a very surface level thing. But the more you talk to people in the network, the more our ecosystem comes across and shares with each other. I'll tell you 50-60% of your understanding of what these tools are, what these technologies are, and what they are built on is more than enough for you to know. And on the prompt side, I have a slightly different opinion to what Anshu said. At least what I have seen, some of the challenges, at least in my conversations with a lot of people who are just starting off their HR careers, and Anshu, you can correct me if I'm wrong, what I've seen. And again, when people have done, and it could also be, the sort of backgrounds they may come from and the way they're also the ability to sort of put a question out or ask, right? We have seen that not all of the HR professionals, or at least within organizations, when they are compared, are able to get the maximum value out of even the GPT enterprise solution, right? And for that, I'll give you another parallel example. In our own research industry, one of our big fours called EY is spending roughly about over 30, and it's out in the news, right? 30-35 million dollars to make sure that all the researchers in our kind of business whose job is to actually understand value chains, to understand products, to understand strengths, weaknesses. I can tell you, even the researchers who actually go on to Google and try to find, data and insights and documents faster, we've seen that the ability to prompt into, let's say, a GPT or a Pathfinder or
Any
any
tool.
other solution, I would say is still only about 60-70% for the core researchers. For HR professionals, we've seen within the same group or core group, you will see, and I've tested this with my team. I'm sure you can, Anshu, test it with your teams. You would see the varying degrees of competencies of asking a question and trying to generate the value back out of it. And the reason for that is one other skill which I forgot to mention. And again, we don't need to be mathematical wizards, but is a basic understanding of some numbers and the way a lot of these solutions are feeded with a lot of data and insights and number. That's another skill going to be another skill which is going to become very important in this transformation, that journey that we see.
Actually, Gaurav, you're not far away from what I said. I said if you are an expert in your area, then
Yeah,
prompt engineering is just a buzzword. But
just a
you're
buzzword.
right in saying that you need to be expert in your current area of, and it could be for HR professionals, it could be for other areas, marketing, finance, and other functions that we've talked about. You need to first understand your function really well,
Absolutely.
Very
right?
well,
The
Specific
area
in
in
of
depth.
work, the job
Yeah,
that you're in. If you do
yeah.
understand that well, then you can effectively use. Obviously, if you're learning in a learning stage, you'll need more support, and the prompts that you'll give will not be that effective. So you and I
Yeah.
are not to,
So, so I think that there are
True.
a lot of positives on Gen AI, but I think I have a concern. I personally experienced, right? You know, now it is tool is easily available. People have, I feel at times sometimes we don't even apply our mind, right? I mean, if a, I mean, in our organization, right, we give a lot of proposals to clients, right, for various trainings. Sometimes there's a temptation, right, not even to think, what should go into the proposal. Let me ask Chat GPT and let me ask a Gen AI tool and let them give suggestion. I'll just copy paste kind of thing. What are you seeing as a downside of Gen AI over usage or irresponsible use, where it just becomes you start using your stop using your mind, right, and start
Yeah.
applying yourself, right? There's a danger I see sometimes, in overuse or reckless use of Gen AI. What's your guidance on that? I want you to touch upon. Then I have a couple of announcements to make. So just a quick answer, Gaurav from you and Anshu from you.
So I'll actually tell you, in our own industry that we operate in, and in all the industries, I think there is a very important process called maker checker process. So
Hmm.
if I look at, for example, in my research business, and I'll give you a classic real example of what we did an interesting report with one of the industry association, Pioneer Industry Association, on InsurTech. And a lot of my team members used multiple GenAI solutions. And I found that one of the Gen AI solution was sort of hallucinating and sort of giving maybe not the right information with the source. So they tried to find out, hey, who are the insurtech adopters? Are your traditional?
Mhm.
So it's an easy way out. I'll tell you, if they had to do a bit of a detailed googling research, it would have taken them 2 to 2.5 days to figure this out, or talk to a Bajaj, talk to an LIC, and talk to others. It would have taken them like a week's time. They came back in a day or two's time. So what I've seen is this process of maker checker is extremely essential. This happens in finance. You talk to every finance professional, whatever
Even in
they've
HR,
made, whatever
even in
numbers
HR.
they've created, even in HR, right? I mean, coming from
Yes.
organizations where we worked with, people get ask us to validate a lot of information that we do. The downside of Gen AI, which I'm seeing in our research industry, in content and advertising, in sales and sales enablement, at least today as we speak, unfortunately, with a lot of the early entrants and the young professionals who have come into the industry, are sort of missing that process of maker checker and passing out that information as it is, which could actually lead to a lot of challenges. In our
True.
business, we can't afford to do that. So the maker checker finally comes to even my level or one level below me, and finally that gets validated. And they get disheartened saying, okay, is there a challenge with the technology itself? So I think that maker checker process is extremely essential, whichever tool you use, be it HR, finance, and across. The other piece, again, I'm drawing parallel from our own research industry, is a lot of correlations, estimations, judgment checks. These are a lot of, very basic soft skills that we use. I know we
Mm.
use this in HR also, we use this in our own research industry. When we don't get some data, we do primary review, we do cold calling, we try and estimate it, right? A lot of those skills are also sort of taking a back step, because a lot of estimation models and ready to deploy solutions are in a tabular format and a beautiful format are
Yeah.
coming from Gen AI solution. I think that may affect a generation completely, right?
All right.
And their ability to then take better decisions could largely get affected. And that we need to be careful of. These two important processes or elements that we follow, I think that should not be left out. Gen AI is only a solution that's helping you fast track and helping you improve productivity. But that maker checker process and
That's
the
a good
softer
advice.
skills, very important. Yeah.
That's a good. So I have a couple of announcements because I'm conscious of the time. Let me make those announcements, and Anshu, if we still have time, then we'll take your guidance on this as well, because sometimes I've seen, we can't be irresponsible in using Gen AI without even applying our mind, right? Okay, so if we move on next, Vijay. So we can skip this. So we have as HR, as enabling world, certain flagship programs on HR functional trainings. I wanted to take this opportunity to let you know, and we have a flagship program on HR Academy. We can run, a series of HR functional training, which could be about understanding business, understanding strategy, consulting skills, new age HR, including Gen AI or design thinking and agile HR or HR functional modules. So the link will be there in the chat in case anyone wants to use that. Please feel free to do that, right? And then if we move forward, so what we do, such functions, there are other trainings that we offer as enabling world. It could be like HRBP, it could be like agile TA or design thinking, or using organizational network analysis, different new age technologies in HR function. In case anyone is interested, can reach out to us. We have a YouTube channel where we put such kind of conversation into our channel. So feel free to subscribe. You can scan this QR code and subscribe to the channel. We already have about close to 30 such conversations on different topics of DNI or about employee well-being. These are some of the past sessions that we have where we talked about performance management, we talked about HR partnering, reimagining HR partnering. We had on personalized learning. This is Anshu we are talking about. We had a great panel here globally who talked about how can we use technology to personalize learning for employees. We talked about HR strategy, also about design thinking in HR. So we have multiple interesting topics that you can leverage. You can just scan and there'll be a link in the chat. My team will put, you can click there and then subscribe to, or otherwise just find Enabling World YouTube channel. You will be able to subscribe to that. So I think these are a couple of announcements we wanted to make. Very interesting, thing we are doing now coming soon is we are starting a podcast. because we thought we are doing this conversation, why not convert that into podcast, which is an in thing, right? People sometimes don't look into the YouTube videos for 1 hour or 90 minutes. They rather listen while they're driving or otherwise when they are in the workouts. So podcast is becoming interesting. So we are starting with your blessing. The HR Buzz is the name that we have given. We are starting from next month. So coming soon. So stay tuned on listening to our podcast on different topics of HR. Right. So thank you. I think these are some couple of announcements we wanted to really make. And then I'm conscious of the time. Anshu, thank you so much for coming over and sharing your practical insights and some of the real examples that you have used for using Gen AI for HR and making sense for HR professionals and for great employee experience and managers experience that you're creating and adding value to the business. Thank you very much for sharing those and wish you all the best in your role. I
Thank
envy
you.
you. The kind of role that you have is amazing, fantastic. A lot of us would like to get into that kind of role where you're really using, exploring those possibilities and exploring exciting, avenues for HR. And I'm happy that you say you are the leader within the organization of adopting Gen AI ahead of other functions. So all kudos to you and your team there, and wish you all the best. And Gaurav, thank you very much for coming over. I learned a lot from you. You have very detailed and practical on the ground view of what's happening on the ground, and helping us, visualize what precautions we must take while adopting this, right? How to choose the right tool, right? What environment is needed and what skills we need to get. So I learned a lot from this session. I'm going to watch it again sometimes and make my notes. But thank you very much for coming over. And audience, you are amazing. I know, that you asked a lot of interesting and valuable questions. Unfortunately, in between there was a time when you could not unmute, but I think we had a lot of chat through chat. A lot of questions were going on, so I could see there was a very genuine interest and inclination. So I hope with this discussion we were able to bust some myths about it. And what I liked the best was that Gen AI is for everyone. It's not an elite thing that only MNCs or large organizations can. Everyone can use it. Number one, and second big relief was, as HR professionals, we need to have an appreciation for Gen AI, understanding so that we can use it responsibly and carefully. But it doesn't need, all of us need not be tech wizard to use this. I think anyone with a subject knowledge experts, Anshu, as you said, who can ask right thing from Gen AI, from any tool that we use, should be able to get good answers and best use of that. So with that, I hope we have created enough excitement amongst the audience to start using Gen AI, and reach out to Anshu and Gaurav or me, in case you still need any help on, even outside this session. We are most happy to help all the colleagues. But we want to see HR taking lead more and more in this, using this technology, right? Any final word, Anshu, from you or Gaurav from you?
The only thing that I want to say to everybody who's joined, don't be a passenger on this journey. You go ahead and empower yourself with all the information and knowledge. We'll make the information and resources available to you. But this is an exciting journey to be on. And if you need any support, we're all there. That's all from me.
I
Absolutely.
like that. Don't be a
Yes.
passenger. So be in the driving seat. I like that. Okay.
No, absolutely. I think similar message from my side. Open to helping anybody who has any questions on, understanding on a personal basis or as an organization, as a firm. I think this is a great time a great time where we've seen technology like this take off. There are a lot of other functions, which are benefiting it from greatly. So why not? Why get left behind in this? So yeah, feel free to reach out, like what Sanjeev sir said. Reach out anytime to us. Happy to share case studies, examples, which will help you personally and professionally to grow.
Perfect. With that, sorry we overshot time by a few minutes, but I think it's okay. So with that, we'll close this session and thank you everyone. Stay safe and keep experimenting with caution, with responsibility, and wish you all the best in your journey. Thank you. We'll close the session now. Bye
Thank
everyone,
Thank
and
you.
thank you
Thank you,
team,
everyone.
Kalyan, Vijaya, and everyone who were really working, behind the scene in terms of making this happen. So thank you very much for your efforts as well. Bye then.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.